I found out I'd been replaced by accident. Not in a meeting, not in a one-on-one, not even in one of those cheerful org update emails, where they pretend it's about alignment and growth. I found out because I did what I always do on Monday mornings. I opened the org chart to see who was on my roster for the week. I expected to see my name moved up. They'd been promising it for 3 months. Soon, my manager kept saying, like it was a date on a calendar instead of a word you can stretch forever. Instead, I saw a new box above mine, a new title, a new reporting line, and someone else's name where mine was supposed to be. The strangest part is I didn't feel angry first. I felt embarrassed, like I'd been the only person in the room who didn't get the joke, like everyone else had known the punchline and just waited for me to catch up. Because when a company wants to promote you, they tell you. When they don't, they let you keep working until you stop being useful. And I had been useful. Too useful. I work in operations for a mid-sized software company, the kind that sells platform solutions and pretends spreadsheets are innovation. I've been there 4 years. I'm not the loudest guy in meetings, but I'm the one people message when something is on fire and everyone else is arguing about who owns the extinguisher. If a deal is at risk, sales calls me. If support is drowning, they call me. If engineering misses a delivery date and no one wants to say it out loud, my name shows up in the thread like a confession. I liked being that guy. I took pride in it. I built dashboards that made leadership look competent, even when the numbers were ugly. I built workflows that saved other teams from stepping on rakes. And when something went right, I didn't need applause. I just needed it to stay right. That's why the promotion felt inevitable. Not because I was entitled to it, because I'd already been doing the job. The conversation started right after quarterly results. Darren, my manager, asked me to step into a small glass room with the door that never fully closes. He had that energized, calm managers get when they want you to feel grateful before they ask for more. "You crushed it," he said, sliding my performance summary across the table. "You're operating at the next level." I scanned the page. Every metric was strong. Delivery times down, escalations down, renewal risk down, cross-team satisfaction up. It was the closest thing corporate has to a love letter. Then he said it. "We're going to promote you. Soon." He didn't say, "We'll try." He didn't say, "I'll advocate." He said, "We're going to." Like it was a completed action that just hadn't caught up to the system yet. I should have asked for a date. I should have asked what soon meant in company language. Next week, next quarter, or never. But I made the mistake competent people make when they trust a manager who sounds confident. I asked what he needed from me. Darren's face brightened like he'd been waiting for that exact question. "Keep doing what you're doing," he said, "and start acting like the lead. Mentor the new hires. Own the weekly delivery review. Be the point person for sales when deals get messy. HR will process the paperwork in parallel." In parallel. That phrase is always the trap, so I did it. I stepped into the lead role without the title. I ran the delivery review every week and took the heat when dates slipped. I coached 2 junior analysts through their first customer calls. I built a single source of truth, tracker, that people started referring to like it was policy. I took late calls with sales when their biggest account threatened to walk. I became the bridge between teams that didn't like each other, and Darren loved it because it made him look like a manager with a stable function. Every time I checked in, I got a different version of soon. Comp calibration is coming up. Finance is tightening bands this quarter. People Ops wants to align promotions with the reorg. Don't worry, you're the plan. I didn't argue, I didn't whine, I just kept delivering, because my brain kept translating soon into earned. Then Darren hired someone. He introduced Kyle in a Monday stand-up with a bright smile and a casual tone, like this was a normal hire that wouldn't touch anyone else's life. "Kyle's joining us to help scale the function," Darren said. "He's going to take on some strategic coordination." Kyle was polished, mid-30s, confident voice, The kind of guy who says stakeholders, without irony. He smiled at the camera and said he was excited to partner with everyone. After the call, Darren messaged me privately. Kyle's here to take operational stuff off my plate. Doesn't change anything for you. That was the first time my stomach tightened. Not because Kyle existed, but because Darren felt the need to reassure me before I even asked. Over the next couple of weeks, small things shifted. Threads Darren used to forward to me, he forwarded to Kyle. Meetings I used to be pulled into, Kyle suddenly attended. I'd be halfway through explaining a risk, and Darren would say, "Let's get Kyle's eyes on this." I told myself it was fine. Scaling, right? Delegation, structure. But I also started doing something I'd never done before at work. I documented. Not out of malice, out of self-respect. After every one-on-one where Darren said soon, I sent a short recap email. What we discussed, what I was taking on, what the expectation was. I phrased it politely, like a professional. I didn't accuse. I didn't demand. I just put reality into writing. Darren rarely replied, but he never corrected me either. And silence, in corporate life, is often the most convenient signature. By the time we hit day 93, I'd stopped feeling excited. I felt suspended, like I was holding a heavy box, while someone kept saying, "Just a second," and walking farther away. The Friday before everything snapped, Darren looked me in the eye and said, "Hold tight. Next cycle, it's locked." I went home that night with the kind of relief that feels like safety. Monday morning, I sat down, opened my laptop, and clicked the org chart link like I always did. Habit, curiosity, routine. It loaded slowly. Then the boxes rearranged, and right above my name, where my promotion was supposed to appear, was Kyle. A new title, a new reporting line. My title unchanged. My responsibilities unchanged. Just my future, quietly reassigned. The email hit my inbox 5 minutes after I saw the org chart. Subject line, org structure update, effective immediately. The message was cheerful in that corporate way that makes your skin crawl. A few lines about alignment, scalable leadership, and clarifying ownership. A link to the same org chart I just stared at. And at the bottom, the classic escape hatch. Please reach out to your manager with any questions. No mention of me, no explanation, no acknowledgement that they'd been promising me the exact change they just gave to someone else. I waited. Not long. Just long enough to see if Darren was going to do the adult thing and call me first. He didn't. So I booked a meeting myself. 15 minutes. Title, quick sync. Neutral words, because the moment you sound emotional, people stop listening and start labeling. Darren accepted the invite almost immediately. When I walked into his office, he was already sitting back in his chair like he'd been expecting me. His laptop was open. His coffee was full. He looked calm. That calm told me something before he even spoke. He had known. He had planned for this. And he had decided I didn't deserve a heads up. "Hey," he said, friendly, like we were about to talk about a project timeline. I didn't sit down right away. I opened my laptop and angled it so he could see the org chart without me having to narrate it. "I saw the update," I said. His eyes flicked to the screen. He paused for half a second, just long enough to confirm he couldn't pretend. "Yeah," he said. "So about that, it's just structure." "Structure is my reporting line," I replied. "I report to Kyle now." Darren gave a small shrug. "Kyle's going to coordinate some cross-functional work. Titles aren't everything." I felt irritation flare, but I kept my voice flat. "Titles mattered when you asked me to do lead work." He leaned forward slightly like he was going to talk me down from a ledge. "Ethan, don't take it personally. This is about scaling. Kyle has experience in formalizing programs. You're still on track." I stared at him. "When were you going to tell me?" "We were going to talk this week," he said quickly. "Today is Monday," I replied. He nodded like he'd heard a fair point, then immediately tried to smooth it over. Things move faster than expected. That sentence was the moment I stopped hoping this was an accident. Things don't move fast without intent. Someone had hit approve. Someone had decided the org chart could change before the conversation. I took a breath and did the one thing he wasn't expecting. I pulled up my notes. I didn't call them receipts. I didn't say I was documenting him. I just opened a simple file. Dates, meeting titles, what he said, what he asked me to do. You told me we were promoting me, I said. You told me soon. You told me to act like the lead. You told me yesterday it was locked for next cycle. Darren's face tightened. It wasn't panic. It was irritation. Like he didn't like the version of me that could remember. He tried to shift the conversation into vague leadership language. You're valuable, he said, but leadership is more than execution. It's presence. It's stakeholder management. I have been managing stakeholders, I cut in, still calm. You just called it helping you scale. Darren exhaled slowly, like I was being unreasonable. Okay, let's not spiral. Let's focus on what we can control. Great, I said. Put it in writing. He blinked. What? Put in writing what you're offering, I said. Title, timeline, compensation band. If I'm still on track, define the track. His jaw flexed. We can't always put timelines on these things. You did, I said. You called it soon. The room went quiet for a beat. I could feel the power shift, small but real. Because now he wasn't talking to a grateful employee. He was talking to someone treating his words like commitments. Darren tapped his pen on the desk, thinking, then reached for the safe exit. Let me talk to HR. We'll circle back. I nodded. One more thing. He looked up, wary. If Kyle is my lead, I said, then I need clarity on my responsibilities. I'm not doing unpaid lead work while someone else holds the title. If I'm an individual contributor, I'm going to operate like one. Darren's tone sharpened. That's not the attitude we need. I'm not changing my attitude, I said. I'm changing my boundaries. I'd left his office before he could turn it into a debate. An hour later, Kyle sent a calendar invite to the whole team. Alignment and ownership review. Friendly agenda, smiley language. Corporate optimism. Darren was on the invite, of course. I joined on time, camera on. Expression neutral. Kyle smiled at me like we were partners. Excited to work with you, Ethan, he said. Likewise, I replied. Kyle started walking through a new operating model. New rhythms, new check-ins, new terminology. Nothing outrageous except the part where he shared his screen and pulled up a spreadsheet. My spreadsheet. Same layout, same formulas, same color coding, same weird little spacing habit I have when I'm trying to make things readable. Except my name wasn't anywhere on it. Kyle talked over it like it had always been his tool, like it had just appeared in his world fully formed. I let him speak for a few seconds, long enough for everyone to see it. Then I said politely, before we move on, I want to correct something. Kyle paused. Darren's eyes narrowed slightly. That tracker was created by me, I said, calm and direct. It's been driving our delivery reviews since we rolled out the process. If we're going to use it as a team artifact, I need the attribution restored and the edit rights clarified. Otherwise, we end up with multiple versions and no accountability. The call went quiet in that way where you can almost hear people thinking, oh, so that's what this is. Kyle cleared his throat. Yeah, of course. No problem. Darren shared it with me. Great work. Darren forced a smile. Good call. Let's keep momentum. I nodded like I was agreeing, but inside something shifted, because it wasn't just that they replaced me. It was that they were already trying to erase me, quietly, politely, with my own work on someone else's screen. After the meeting, I did something small but decisive. I reshared the original tracker in the team channel. I locked permissions so no one could quietly fork it and pretend it was theirs. I enabled change notifications, and I wrote one sentence. Here's the current canonical version for everyone going forward. No accusation, no emotion, just a line in the sand. 30 minutes later, my inbox refreshed. A message from PeopleOps. Hi, Ethan. Can you hop on a quick call tomorrow regarding role alignment and expectations? When HR reaches out before your manager does, it means someone is controlling the story. And I had a strong feeling Darren wasn't telling it honestly. I slept badly that night, but not because I was panicking. Because my brain kept replaying the same detail like a warning light. Kyle didn't just have my tracker. He had it in a format that suggested it had been handed to him as his tool. Not, Ethan built this. Not, use this as a reference. Just, here, this is yours now. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a transfer. The next morning, I joined the call with People Ops. Linda, the HR business partner, was already there. Darren was there too, camera on, polite smile like this was a routine check-in. Kyle wasn't on the invite. That also told me something. Linda started with the usual calm tone HR uses when they want you to talk yourself into a corner. Ethan, thanks for making time. We've had some questions come up around role clarity and expectations with the new structure. Our goal is to ensure alignment and fairness. Fairness. Corporate's favorite word when they're trying to avoid taking a side. I didn't argue. I didn't vent. I didn't mention the org chart feeling like a betrayal. I treated it like a business issue. Happy to clarify, I said. I've been operating in a lead capacity for months based on Darren's direction. The org chart changed and I wasn't informed. I want written clarity on my role, responsibilities, and growth path. Linda nodded. Understood. Darren, do you want to add context? Darren's smile stayed in place, but his eyes hardened slightly. Sure, he said. Ethan's been doing great work. We're simply scaling. Kyle was brought in to standardize processes and help with cross-functional coordination. Ethan's role is still very important. He said it smoothly, like he'd practiced it. Linda turned back to me. Ethan, can you confirm what responsibilities you've been performing that you believe are beyond your current role? I had already prepared for that question. The moment HR uses beyond your role, they're looking for a reason to either compensate you or tell you to stop. I shared my screen and pulled up a document titled Scope Summary. Clean headings, dates, deliverables, no emotion. I walked through it. Owning weekly delivery review and reporting to leadership primary escalation point for sales. On late-stage renewals, mentoring and onboarding junior analysts. Building and maintaining the core delivery tracker, used across teams representing our function in director-level syncs. Linda listened and took notes. Darren didn't interrupt until I mentioned director-level syncs. That's more observational, he said quickly. Ethan attended for exposure. Exposure. That word is poison. It means you're not supposed to expect anything back. I didn't argue. I just opened my calendar and showed recurring invites where Darren had listed me as the owner for updates. Understood, I said. This is how it was positioned to me at the time. Linda's expression stayed neutral, but her voice became more precise. Darren, was there a promotion request initiated for Ethan at any point? Darren's smile twitched. We discussed it. We were aligning timing. Linda nodded slowly. Okay. Ethan, have you seen anything in the HR portal indicating an active promotion workflow? No, I said. I checked. There's nothing initiated. Darren leaned forward slightly, voice still controlled. We don't always start workflows until we're ready to finalize. That was the line he wanted to land. The implication, Ethan is impatient. Ethan doesn't understand process. So I didn't fight the implication. I removed it. Then I need a timeline, I said calmly. If nothing was initiated and the org chart has changed, I need to know what soon means now. Linda glanced at Darren. Darren, can we provide a target window? There was a pause. Just a second, but it was enough. Then Darren said, It's hard to commit. There are budget constraints. Budget constraints. After months of me doing lead work, I nodded once. Okay. Then I'm going to recalibrate my scope to match my current title until there's a formal change. Linda looked at me. What do you mean by recalibrate? I mean I'll focus on my assigned individual contributor responsibilities, I said. I'll support the team, but I won't serve as the de facto lead without a defined role and compensation. Darren's tone sharpened. That's not how leadership works. Leadership also isn't a volunteer position, I replied, still even. Silence again. Linda's eyes flicked between us. Then she said, "Let's take a step back. Ethan, your concerns are understood. Darren, we should ensure we have clarity to avoid confusion internally and externally. I'll follow up with next steps." The call ended politely. Darren stayed on for a second after Linda dropped. "Was that necessary?" he asked, voice low. "Yes," I said. "I've been patient. Now I'm being clear." He stared at me like he was deciding whether to intimidate me or charm me. Then he chose charm. "Ethan, I don't want you making a mistake. Kyle's here to help. We can still get you there." "I'm not asking to be gotten anywhere," I said. "I'm asking for something you promised." He didn't answer that. He just said, "Let's talk later." When the screen went dark, I didn't feel relieved. I felt empty. Because the truth was simple. If they wanted to promote me, they would have already started the process. They had time to update an org chart. They had time to onboard Kyle. They had time to hand him my work. They just didn't have time to honor their word. That afternoon, I did something that wasn't emotional at all. It was practical. I stopped operating like a man waiting to be chosen and started operating like a man gathering options. I updated my resume with the scope I'd been doing, not the title I'd been denied. I wrote it in clean language: operational leadership, cross-functional execution, customer risk management. No bitterness, just truth. Then I reached out to 2 former colleagues who had moved to other companies and asked if they had 10 minutes this week. One of them replied within minutes, "Absolutely. I've been wondering when you'd leave." That sentence hit harder than any insult Darren could have thrown at me, because it meant other people could see it too. They could see what was happening, and they were waiting for me to accept it. Later that evening, Kyle messaged me, "Hey Ethan, can you send me your latest notes on the delivery risks for the big renewal? Want to make sure I'm aligned." I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't have the notes. I had everything. I always did. But because the wording made it clear he didn't want to understand. He wanted to inherit. So I replied with one sentence. "I'll share the risks in the tracker and the decision log. That way the context stays with the source." He responded with a thumbs up. And for the first time, I realized the game they were playing was simple. They wanted my work without my leverage. They wanted my calm problem solving while they shifted credit upward. They wanted me useful, quiet, grateful. That night, I opened the HR portal again. I clicked through every section related to career records, job profiles, and role changes. I searched my name the way you search for proof you're not crazy. Nothing. No pending promotion, no draft, no workflow, no approvals. Just my current title, unchanged, staring back at me like a verdict. I closed the laptop and sat there in silence. And then I did something that surprised even me. I stopped hoping. Because hope was the only thing keeping me in a cage with the door open. The next morning, a calendar invite appeared in the team channel. Quarterly review, key customer renewal risk. It was our biggest account, the kind that made leadership nervous, the kind that had my fingerprints all over it. I opened the invite and scanned the participants. Darren was there, Kyle was there, Sales was there. My name wasn't. I read the list again, slower this time, like the letters might change. They didn't. And in that moment, I understood exactly what was happening. They weren't just replacing my title. They were testing whether they could replace my presence. And they picked the worst possible meeting to try. I didn't message Darren. I didn't message Kyle. I didn't politely remind anyone that the biggest customer review of the quarter was built on work I'd been doing for months. I just watched. Because at that point, I wasn't trying to be liked. I was trying to see the truth in clean daylight. 45 minutes before the meeting, my phone buzzed. A text from Marisol, the sales director. "Are you joining the quarterly review? Naomi is asking for you." Naomi was the customer's operations lead. Practical, sharp, not interested in internal politics. She didn't care about our org chart. She cared about delivery dates and whether her executive team would blame her for trusting us. I stared at Marisol's message and felt that calm again, pure cold leverage. "I'm not on the invite," I replied, "but I can join if needed." 3 dots appeared. Then, join. Now. Marisol sent me the link. I clicked in. The call was already tense. Kyle was sharing a slide deck with our logo on it and too many bullet points. Darren sat with his best confident leader face. Naomi looked tired, the way people look when they've already explained the same problem 3 times, and no one has fixed it. "We need clarity on delivery risk," Naomi said. "Your roadmap keeps shifting and we keep hearing different owners. Who is accountable?" Kyle smiled like a man trying to sell stability. "We've made internal improvements. I'm leading the program now, so you'll see tighter execution and clearer ownership." Naomi didn't react the way Kyle expected. Her eyes moved to the participant list. She read it quickly. Then she asked, flat and direct, "Where's Ethan?" Kyle froze for half a second. Darren's posture tightened. I turned my camera on. "I'm here," I said. "Hi, Naomi." Naomi's shoulders dropped slightly. It was subtle, but everyone saw it. Relief masked as professionalism. "Good," she said, "because I have questions and I want straight answers." Kyle tried to cut in. "We can—" Naomi raised her hand. "No offense, Kyle, but Ethan has been the only person who consistently follows through. I want his view." That sentence landed like a weight. I didn't gloat. I didn't make it a moment. I simply did what I always did. I answered. Naomi asked about the 2 delivery milestones that had slipped. I explained the real blockers, the ones Darren didn't like naming because they made leadership look disorganized. I referenced the decision log. I outlined mitigations I'd already started quietly with engineering leads. I said what was confirmed, what was at risk, and what needed executive support. When Naomi asked who owned the remediation plan, I didn't say the team. "I do," I said, "and I can send you the updated timeline today." Darren's eyes were on me the entire time, not friendly, not hostile, calculating. Kyle sat very still, nodding at things he clearly hadn't known. By the end of the call, Naomi wasn't thrilled, but she was calm. Calm is how renewals survive. Calm is how people decide not to escalate to lawyers. Naomi said, "Thank you, Ethan. That's the clarity we've been asking for." Then she added, looking directly at Darren, "Please make sure Ethan is on these calls going forward." The call ended, and as people dropped, I saw Marisol stay on. Darren stayed on. Kyle stayed on. The moment the customer disconnected, the air changed. The tone went from client-facing to internal reality. Marisol spoke first. Her voice wasn't loud. It was controlled, which made it worse for Darren. "Darren," she said, "why wasn't Ethan invited to that call?" Darren tried to laugh it off. "It was an oversight." Marisol didn't blink. "An oversight on our biggest account review? After Naomi asked for him by name? That's not an oversight. That's a risk decision." Kyle cleared his throat. I assumed." Marisol cut him off, not cruelly but firmly. "Kyle, I'm not interested in assumptions. I'm interested in preventing a churn event." Darren leaned forward, voice smoother now, trying to get control back. "We're aligned. Ethan's still an important contributor. Kyle's just formalizing the function." Marisol's expression didn't change. "Formalizing what, Darren? Ethan just delivered the only coherent risk plan on that call." Darren's jaw tightened. He glanced at me. "Ethan, can you give us a minute?" I held his gaze through the camera. "No," I said calmly. "If you're discussing my role on a call I wasn't invited to, I'm part of the discussion." Silence. Kyle looked between us like he had just realized he'd stepped into a fight that started long before he arrived. Marisol exhaled, like she'd decided something. "Here's what's going to happen," she said. "I want a written ownership plan by end of week. Who owns delivery? Who owns customer comms? Who owns escalation response? And I want people ops copied. because we can't keep telling customers we're aligned when we're not. Then she left the call. The second she disconnected, Darren's voice sharpened. "What was that?" he snapped. "You undermined Kyle." I didn't raise my voice. "I answered a customer who asked for me." "You didn't have to make it about you," Darren said. "I didn't," I replied. "Naomi did." Darren leaned back, frustration rising. "Your job is to support the structure." And there it was. Not support the customer. Not support the team. Support the structure. Meaning, support Darren's decision, even if it hurts the business. Even if it hurts me. Kyle tried to sound diplomatic. "Look, I think we can—" I cut in, still calm. "Kyle, I'm not angry at you. But I need clarity. Are you my lead because you're here to help, or because Darren decided I shouldn't be promoted?" Kyle opened his mouth, closed it, then said the truth in the way people do when they don't realize they're confessing. "Darren asked me to take ownership," he said. "Of what?" I asked. Kyle hesitated, then, "Of the operating model. The rhythms, the artifacts, the coordination." He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. He meant my work. Darren's tone went colder. "Ethan, this is not the time." "It's exactly the time," I said, "because now it affects renewal." 30 minutes later, another invite hit my calendar. Role alignment, urgent. Organizer, Linda from People Ops. Attendees, me, Darren, Kyle, and a new name I hadn't seen before, Senior HR Business Partner. That last part made my stomach tighten. When a senior HR partner joins, it means the situation is now categorized as risk. We joined the call. Linda opened with a careful tone. "Given the customer escalation and concerns about accountability, we need to ensure internal clarity. Ethan, you've raised concerns about promises made and role expectations." The senior HR partner, her name was Diane, didn't smile. She didn't do warm. She went straight to the point. "Darren," Diane said, "did you represent to Ethan that a promotion was in progress?" Darren's face tightened. We discussed career development. We were exploring timing. I didn't jump in emotionally. I simply shared my screen and opened the recap email I'd sent after our one-on-one the night before the org chart changed. Subject, one-on-one recap. In it, plain as day, was Darren's own phrase. "Next cycle, it's locked." Diane read it. Linda read it. Kyle read it. Darren's eyes stayed on the camera, but his face stopped smiling. Diane asked, "Was a promotion workflow initiated in the HR system?" Darren swallowed. "Not yet." "Why not?" Diane asked. Darren tried to pivot. Budget, timing, organizational alignment. Diane didn't react. Then why was the org chart updated to reflect a leadership change without notifying Ethan? Darren paused too long, and in that pause, the story became obvious to everyone on the call. He had promised me something to extract more work, then avoided formalizing it because formalizing it would force accountability. Linda spoke carefully. "Ethan, what outcome are you seeking?" I didn't say revenge. I didn't say justice. I said the cleanest truth. "Written clarity," I replied. "Role scope, reporting line, and a real growth path with a timeline. If the answer is that I'm not being promoted, I can accept that. I can't accept being strung along and used." Kyle looked down. Darren looked furious. Diane nodded once, like she appreciated the professionalism. "Understood," she said. "Darren, we will need to review this and determine appropriate next steps. In the interim, Ethan's scope should align to his current job description unless an updated role is issued." Darren's head snapped slightly. "That will slow execution." Diane didn't blink. "Then issue the updated role." Silence again. After the call, Darren messaged me privately. "Let's talk," I replied. "You can include HR." 10 minutes later, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but I did. A recruiter's voice. "We have feedback from the panel. They want to move quickly." I listened, asked a few questions, and when she mentioned compensation, I felt the final piece click into place. The role was one level higher than the promotion Darren had been dangling. The pay band was real. The scope was defined, and the timeline wasn't soon. It was immediate. When I hung up, I didn't feel excited. I felt calm. Because now Darren wasn't the gatekeeper of my future anymore. And that was when I realized something else. The org chart update hadn't just exposed their plan. It had handed me my exit. I didn't tell Darren about the offer right away, not because I was playing games, because I'd learned something uncomfortable over the last 93 days. The moment you show your hand, people stop telling the truth. So I did two things that afternoon. First, I asked the recruiter for the offer in writing, with the full scope, compensation band, and start date. Clean terms. No, we'll revisit. No soon. Second, I wrote my resignation email and saved it as a draft. I didn't send it yet. I just wanted to feel how it looked on the screen. Simple, calm, finished. The next morning, Darren called me into his office with a softness he hadn't used in weeks. He closed the door like we were back to being on the same team. "We can fix this," he said. "We can fast-track the promotion." I watched him carefully. Same man, same chair, same voice. New desperation. "Send it in writing," I said. He nodded too quickly. "Of course." 10 minutes later, an email arrived. Subject, growth plan. I opened it and almost laughed. No title change, no pay band change. A vague promise to revisit in the coming months. A bullet list of responsibilities I had already been doing for free. The word soon wasn't in the email, but it was everywhere in the subtext. That was my micro-catharsis. The final one I needed. Not anger, not revenge. Certainty. He had never intended to promote me. He intended to keep me on a leash made of hope. I forwarded the email to myself, closed my laptop, and sent my resignation. No drama, no speeches, just the facts. Effective 2 weeks from today, I am resigning my position. Thank you for the opportunities. I will support a smooth transition. I sent it to Darren, Linda, Diane, and Darren's boss, the senior director who had quietly benefited from my output, without ever checking the ethics of how I was being managed. 3 minutes later, Darren called. "I'm surprised," he said, voice tight. "I'm not," I replied. He tried a different angle. "Let's be rational. We can adjust compensation. We can tweak scope. You're making this bigger than it needs to be." I kept my tone neutral, almost tired. "I asked for a written timeline. You gave me a memo with no change and no date." Silence. Then the line that told me everything about how he saw me. "You're being difficult." I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just answered the truth. "I'm being clear," I said. "That's the difference." He exhaled sharply. "Fine. We'll need a transition plan." "You'll have one," I said, "because I'm not leaving messy." That part mattered to me. Not because I wanted to be a hero, because I wanted the narrative closed. No loose ends they could twist into a story about me being unstable or emotional. The next day, Diane scheduled an exit conversation. Darren wasn't invited. Diane asked direct questions, the kind HR asks when they're measuring risk. "Were you promised a promotion?" "Yes." "Was a promotion workflow initiated?" "No." "Did your scope expand based on that promise?" "Yes." "Were reporting lines changed without communication?" "Yes." Diane nodded once, then said something that sounded small but wasn't. "Thank you. We'll address the process gap." Process gap. Corporate language for someone created liability. That afternoon, Marisol called me. "I heard," she said. "Tell me you're not leaving without telling Naomi where you went." "I'll do a clean handover," I promised. "I'm not burning anything." Marisol paused. "I'm not asking you to burn it. I'm asking you to protect the renewal. And honestly, to protect yourself. You've been carrying their reputation." I spent that week building the most thorough transition document of my life. Not a few bullets. A real operating manual. What was in flight? What was at risk? Who owned what? Why decisions had been made? Where the bodies were buried, professionally speaking, with dates and context. I linked the canonical tracker. I linked the decision log. I attached the latest customer risk memo. I created a calendar of upcoming milestones and who needed to be in each meeting. Then I did one thing Darren hated more than any confrontation. I copied the people who were actually accountable. Kyle, Marisol, Linda, Diane, Darren's boss. No commentary, no accusation, just visibility. The next morning, Darren stopped me near the coffee machine, voice low and sharp, like this was a personal betrayal. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm transitioning my work," I said, "to the people responsible for it." "You're making me look bad," he said. I looked at him for a second, then spoke calmly, like I was explaining a simple policy. "I'm not making you look anything," I said. "I'm documenting reality." He stared at me like he wanted to say something worse, then turned away. That was the moment I felt peace. Not joy. Peace. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't negotiating my own worth with a man who benefited from underpaying it. On my final week, Kyle asked for a walkthrough of the tracker. I agreed, once. We did it on a recorded call. I explained how the formulas worked, why certain risk flags existed, what the customer cared about, what had been promised, what could not be promised again without consequences. Kyle was quieter than he'd been when he arrived. Near the end, he asked a question that sounded almost genuine. "Why didn't Darren just promote you?" he said. I didn't insult Darren. I didn't even sound bitter. "Because then he'd have to admit he needed me," I said. "And some managers would rather lose talent than lose control." Kyle looked down. "I didn't realize," he muttered. "I did," I said, and left it there. My last day came without fireworks. My badge worked until late afternoon. I turned in my laptop. I shook hands with people who had treated me like a person. I ignored Darren's final attempt at friendliness, because I was done interpreting his tone. Before I walked out, I joined one last customer call with Naomi, because Marisol asked me to, and because I wanted the ending clean. Naomi got on and said, "So you're leaving?" "Yes," I said. She didn't ask why. She didn't need the story. She just said, "Who do I go to now?" "I'm sending you the new point person," I told her. "And I'm copying Marisol, so you always have an escalation path that doesn't depend on org charts." Naomi nodded once. "That's the most responsible thing anyone's done in weeks." After the call, I sent the handover email to Naomi, copied Kyle and Marisol, and attached the transition plan. Then I left. 2 weeks into my new job, Marisol texted me. "Naomi renewed," she wrote. "She asked where you went. I told her you leveled up." A day later, I opened LinkedIn out of habit and saw Darren's update. He was pursuing new opportunities. No explanation, no apology, just a new headline. Kyle's title had changed too. He was now reporting under sales operations to improve cross-functional accountability. I stared at those updates for a moment and felt something settle. Not satisfaction like a movie ending. Satisfaction like a system correcting itself. Because the truth is, they didn't lose me the day the org chart changed. They lost me the day they chose silence over honesty. And 93 days later, they finally learned what soon costs when the person doing the work stops believing it.